Back. Some parents in Gauteng are still unsure whether their children will go to school in the 2026 academic year, despite the Provincial Education Department opening late applications. The delays are raising concerns about whether families will be able to secure quality education on time, with some considering private schools to avoid the January rush. Governing Body Foundation's Dr. Anthea Cereseto joins us now for more. Doc, thank you so much for your time and for being with us this evening. Do you think that with these ongoing admissions crisis, there may be a lack of a clear communication between parents and the education system that could impact on the trust between the two?
Yes, indeed. You know, unfortunately, this is an annual event. The online admissions are pretty problematic because we have many more children needing spaces than the places available in Gauteng schools. So every year we have the problem, and I'm sure you're aware in other provinces, similar problems. We have in-migration to urban areas, and parents are seeking quality education for their children, and there just aren't enough places in the schools. I am very concerned because we have these children who need places and they must go to school in 2026. That's a must. That we have to find places for them. However, forcing schools to take larger numbers is going to compromise quality, because you end up with overcrowded classrooms, which the teachers can't manage. The children can't get sufficient attention. We start with discipline problems, and when you get discipline problems, you have poor learning outcomes. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle, this. Now, you asked about the communication. I know the MEC has communicated, and he has said that everyone will be placed by the 12th. That is Friday. I'm not sure whether that's going to be able to be possible. Schools might be offered that the parents don't want because they're too far away. Parents might have to transport their children some distance at their own expense, because I doubt if there is more departmental transport available, although it's been said that it would be provided. That is supposed to be provided, because the MEC has a responsibility to make sure there are enough places in the province for all the children. But it is certainly a matter of concern. We have been promised that next year admission process will start earlier. Our organization has been asking for that for years and years. Please start earlier, because it takes a long time. And we're back in December and still parents have no places.
We spoke... Sorry, Anthea,
Yes.
Dr. Cereseto, I think maybe because you're mentioning that the MEC has spoken about some of the openings that are available, and he also spoke about how there are 87,000 open spaces, but that parents are not looking to place their children in. How do we bridge that gap where we do have open spaces in certain schools, but where parents perhaps might perceive those schools not of good quality education, but those spaces are available for their children?
Well, that's a very interesting point, because if there are schools that have got spaces and a number of spaces, then greater effort needs to be made to make those schools work in a better way, because the parents have a right to go and look for quality education where they believe it will be found. If there are schools that have got spaces, it may be a sign that the parents have looked at what's going on there and said, this is not a safe place for my child. I don't see good work coming out of the school. And so they walk away from certain schools. I'm sure you understand that every parent wants the best for his or her child, and so seeks out the schools they think would be best opportunities. So if there are spaces, we need to look at where those spaces are, and then as a system of education in the province, if this is probably mimicked elsewhere in the country, that we need to work very hard at helping those schools become functional, putting in the safety measures, because it's very often a safety issue, putting in the necessary safety support, and that is a problem because schools had safety support which was withdrawn because of financial constraints. But we have to get the schools safe. We have to get those schools functioning so that parents can have trust in those schools. I'm concerned that parents may be looking at private education when in fact it's not really affordable for them. And that would put enormous strain on the families because private school fees have to be paid. And if you don't pay, they kick you out. There's no mercy because they need the money to function. So they have to get the fees. So parents have to, I think, if they're not getting these spaces or they are being offered, but they don't want those spaces, but there's nothing else, they need to accept those spaces. And we need to start working with parent power, that every child has a carer, a family member, somebody who is concerned about that child's well-being. Parents, caregivers must get together and start to make those schools work the way they would want them to work. So they land up where they don't really want to be. But perhaps the only solution, and because it's not affordable to go to the private schools, let's make those schools work. And there are ways of doing that, but it's going to take a lot of willpower. But I think we do have to get parents back in business in schools. And you will find that the schools that are in high demand, that are delivering quality, have parents who keep their eyes firmly on what goes on in the school. Those parents keep an eye and they make sure that everybody is working as they should, that the discipline is acceptable. Parents are in it to make sure that their children are getting along fine. And we need to transfer that same activity into these schools that have perhaps become I don't like to say no-go zones, but it is possible they've reached that level. But if there are spaces, let's put the effort into those spaces.
You raise a very important point there with regards to parent power and bringing parents back into the business of also just running some of these schools and not only leaving it to the educators and the administrators at those schools. And that makes that turnaround. But one of the other issues that the department cited was with regards to poor planning, poor municipal planning, and just those capacity issues. How do you think government as well as urban planners need to work together with regards to the infrastructure when we're looking at a long-term basis in ensuring that we've got good quality schools that are safe for our children and then still bringing in back that parent power that you spoke of?
Yes. So there are some cases that we're working on now where a school has managed to acquire a property but cannot use it. Grade R is now compulsory next year. Well, is actually already compulsory. But next year it will become, implementable in full. And a school has acquired a place to run the grade R classrooms, but they can't get through the signing off process. So to sign off the building, et cetera, so that the schools can run the classes in the proper building. They run it in a hall at the moment, which is not right. So it's all a matter of our services in our country that support everything. So if plans have to be approved, we need to get those plans approved speedily so that we don't wait for ages before the plans can be approved, before the building can start. We also have to, because schools are allowed to build additional classrooms, they are even getting funding for building extra classrooms so that they can accommodate more. But getting those plans through in the process to get it just drags on and on and on. So and I'm sure it applies to most of the things that happen in our lives here, that can we please just all work really hard as fast and as efficiently as we possibly can. We don't want to cut corners because we have to keep everything safe and we have to be within building regulations and all that sort of thing. But the people who have to do the work need to be doing it, if they need others to support them so that they can do better, all the role players need to play a part. So a school is just one little part of our whole big system here. But it depends on so many systems operational in our province and in our country. If everybody could just, really put the shoulder to the wheel, as the saying goes, and see if we can make things work at a faster speed so that the turnaround time is better. If we build a classroom, can we please get on and do it and not have obstacles put in the way and all the approvals that have to happen? Can we have those done speedily, not to have huge backlogs of those things?
Certainly.
So education building is caught in the same logjam that a lot of other people's projects are caught up in.
So, Doc, the MEC spoke about how the online system has certainly made gains over the 10 years of its existence. Do you think that this is a very or more inclusive process and approach, particularly for those marginalized and vulnerable communities?
Debatable thing. And I've had many thoughts on it. I actually think it is a good thing in many respects. It certainly seems to be achieving a fairer outcome than perhaps other systems, where there's maybe more discretion to be discriminatory. On the other hand, it is a sort of high-tech solution, which means that people who aren't so easily able to access technology necessary, do have to go out of their way to a venue where they can actually do the online registration and all the rest. And so we have said that that's a problem. Feeder areas are also to some extent a problem because they may be not everywhere, but in some areas, it would kind of be entrenching original historical demographics of the area. And therefore, the people who historically lived in the area would have, easier access to these high demand schools. It's not so everywhere because some of those high demand schools don't have a big school-going population. And so there's lots of space for people to come in from further afield into these high-demand schools. So I do think it's probably a good system. We must make sure that there isn't anything going on behind the scenes where people are getting preference ahead in some unauthorized fashion. And there have been some allegations of that sort. But by and large, it has worked according to what the people have entered in the system and according to how close you are to the school. And it certainly has extended the accessibility to everybody, made it possible for everybody to access school of choice. But places are limited in the high demand schools. Okay. I think it's a better option, although I have heard lots of people saying, can we please just go to the old system where we had to line up?
Outside those schools.
Lining up,
does also come with its own disadvantages. All right, Dr. Cereseto, but thank you so much for your time and joining us this evening. Those placements, the MEC says, will be done by the 12th of December, and from the 17th, the appeals process will then begin. But we certainly do hope that many of those students will be placed in a classroom by the start of the academic year in 2026. Thank you so much for your time.